My name is Lauren. I'm 28 years old, living in Chicago and working as a senior financial consultant. People call me the steady one, the woman who holds the family together when chaos threatens to tear it apart. I suppose that's fair. I'm the one who paid off my brother Hunter's tuition after he lost his scholarship to reckless partying. The one who shouldered over $60,000 of debt my father squandered on shady investments. And the one who quietly covered every one of my mother's credit card bills, even though she's never once asked if I was okay. I used to tell myself, family is family. No matter what, you keep trying. But over time that belief began to choke me, like a promise I never meant to keep. Last week, a text from my mother Ellen lit up my phone. Dear Lauren, come by the house at 6 o'clock tonight. We have something special for you. My fingers froze on the screen. Something special from Ellen usually meant trouble. The last time she used those words, the family ambushed me to co-sign a loan for Hunter's startup months after his previous venture crashed and burned. I sat in my car, parked outside the 2-story suburban house I helped pay for 4 years ago, its deed safely in my parents' names. Through the warm yellow glow of the windows, I saw shadows moving, heard muffled laughter. I stepped out, adjusted my coat, and rang the doorbell. The door swung open and there was my mother, makeup flawless, red lipstick blazing, eyes sparkling with a little too much intensity. Surprise! She squealed, pulling me inside. The living room was packed with relatives I hadn't seen since Christmas 2 years ago. Uncle Henry, Aunt Joan, even my cousin Daphne, who only shows up for gifts or cash. Everyone shouted in unison, "Happy early birthday, Lauren." I forced a smile, feigning surprise. "Oh wow, you guys really got me," I said, though suspicion coiled in my gut. My mother guided me to the couch at the room's center, and my father handed me a cocktail. "Your favorite green apple gin," he grinned ear to ear. I've hated gin since I was 25, I thought, but didn't say. "Sit down, sweetheart," my mother said softly, though her eyes flicked to a leather-bound folder on the side table, positioned like it was waiting for me. I sat, glancing at the first page. Asset Allocation Agreement, Louise Bennett Inheritance Trust. I tilted my head. "What's this, Mom?" I asked. "Oh, just boring paperwork," she said quickly, her hand on mine. "Let's look at it later, sweetheart. Tonight is for celebrating." I smiled, but my hand was already reaching for the folder. "Actually, I'd like to look now if that's okay." The room went still. My father stood awkwardly, raising his glass. "A toast to Lauren, the brightest star of the family," he said, voice rushed. I flipped to the first page. My eyes locked on one sentence. "I, Lauren Claire Bennett, hereby relinquish all rights to the Louise Bennett Inheritance Trust." I looked at my mother. "Mom, what is this?" She forced a smile. "Just a formality, honey. For tax purposes." "Tax purposes or transferring everything to the family without telling me?" I asked, voice calm but eyes piercing hers. "Lauren," Hunter cut in, "please just sign it. Everyone's already agreed." I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. "So this is the real reason for the surprise birthday party?" My mother's hands clenched, her smile vanishing. "Don't make a scene. Everyone's here." I closed the folder and placed it on my lap. "Then let everyone hear it. They deserve the truth." I looked around the room, familiar faces now feeling foreign. This night, I knew, would mark the beginning of something entirely different. The air was thick, my heartbeat pounding in my chest. The folder's leather cover bent slightly where my fingers gripped it. No one spoke. Every pair of eyes shared one thing: avoidance. Hunter stared at the floor, fingers interlaced tightly. Daphne tapped her phone, as if a notification mattered more than this. My mother still wore that forced smile, but unease flickered in her eyes. My father looked uneasy too. "Dad, Mom, why would you do this? If this was really about Grandma's estate, why not just talk to me honestly?" My mother cleared her throat, stepping closer, her voice syrupy but sharp. "Sweetheart, I know you worry too much, but this isn't a big deal. I thought if the inheritance were under our management, it'd be more convenient. You don't need more money, do you? You already have everything." I let out a dry laugh. "Convenient for who, Mom? Why trap me like this at a party you called a surprise? I thought I was family, not a financial asset." A gravelly voice spoke from the corner. "Lauren, that's enough," said Uncle Ray. "You're making everyone uncomfortable." Really? I turned to him. Then I guess I should apologize for not signing away the last legal tie I have to my grandmother. Reagan, my best friend, stepped up beside me. I hadn't noticed her before, but now she was there, eyes steady, ready if I needed her. Lauren, my mother snapped, smile gone. Don't turn this into a drama. I stood, lifting the folder with 2 fingers like it might stain. The thing is, Mom, you wrote the script and I refused to play the part. I walked to the dining table, placed the folder down gently, and looked at every face in the room. Grandma Louise left everything to me because she knew. And tonight, you all proved she was absolutely right. Silence. I turned to Reagan. Can we go? She nodded. But before I reached the door, my mother called out, If you don't sign, there will be consequences, Lauren. I turned back, meeting her eyes. I've lived with consequences my whole life, Mom. Now I choose clarity. And I walked out of that house not with tears or anger, but with awareness. Reagan's car glided down the street, golden lights flickering past. I leaned back, heart still rattled. You okay? She asked softly. Not yet, but I will be, I answered, staring out the window. Reagan was silent, then murmured, Your grandma must have seen this coming. I nodded. Yeah, I think she left something more behind, not just money. Maybe a video, a letter, a way to expose them. Reagan squeezed my hand. Then it's your turn now. I held her hand tightly and nodded. Tomorrow I'd meet Grandma's lawyer. We stopped at a lakeside cafe, golden lights shimmering across the water like glass. Reagan set down 2 cups of hot tea as I pulled the folder from my purse. I flipped through it slowly, ensuring I missed nothing. It wasn't just the inheritance waiver, there were attachments. A temporary power of attorney and a financial reallocation sheet stating nearly 100% of Grandma's assets would transfer to a new trust managed by my parents. Reagan's expression darkened. They weren't planning to give you a single dollar. I nodded. Not only that, they planned to use my name to make it look legal. If I signed, I'd be handing them the keys. She bit her lip, thinking, What about your grandmother's lawyer? You said you'd reach out. I pulled out my phone, reopening the last message Grandma Louise sent me a week before she passed. Dear Lauren, if things ever feel confusing, see my attorney, Mr. Gerald Price. I left some things for you. I called his office the next morning. A professional-sounding woman scheduled me for 10 a.m. I arrived 10 minutes early, heart pounding. The office was in a classic red brick building in downtown Boston, large windows facing the park. Gerald Price, a calm, silver-haired man in his early 60s, greeted me with a firm handshake and led me to a room lined with law books. On his desk sat a thick envelope bearing my name, carefully sealed. Mrs. Louise left a private video recording for you, he said, pulling a USB drive from a drawer. She also left documents related to the original trust, which your family is trying to restructure. I took a deep breath. The video, can I watch it now? He nodded and plugged the USB into his computer. The screen lit up and Grandma's voice filled the room, slow, warm, slightly frail but sharp. Lauren, if you're watching this, things are unfolding as I feared. I sat upright, eyes locked on the screen. You've always been kind, the only grandchild who never asked for anything. That's why I want to protect you. I saw how your mother treated others, even me, using family as an excuse to take advantage, all in the name of sacrifice. I left you everything, not because you needed it, but because you deserve it. My hands clenched, eyes burning. The screen switched to the trust's original terms, stating that if anyone tried to force the heir to forfeit their rights, all assets would redirect to named charitable organizations. Your family is unaware of this clause, Mr. Price said. But if you give the word, I can activate it today. I looked at him. This video, can I have a copy? Of course, he said, handing me a fresh USB. And there's one more recording meant for the family. I took the device, heart pounding with mixed emotions. A plan began to form. I think it's time the whole family watched the video together. Reagan met me in the parking lot. I told her everything on the ride back. When I mentioned the video, her eyes lit up. You're going to show them? I nodded. Tonight, I'm hosting a small get-together at that house. My surprise party becomes their surprise twist. I smiled. This time, I'm writing the script. Once everyone was there, I'd play the video. And if anyone tried anything shady, the clause transferring 100% to charity was waiting. They had no idea, but I knew they were the ones being tested. That evening I sent a round of texts. Mom, I've thought it over. Tomorrow, I'm inviting everyone to my apartment at 5 p.m. I'd like to resolve everything peacefully. The reply came instantly. Sweetheart, I knew you'd come around. I'm so glad we'll all be there. I didn't need to read it carefully. I knew my mother, Ellen Langston, never turned down a gathering where she thought she'd win. Reagan helped me rearrange my living room. I borrowed a mini projector from the office and mounted it on a shelf facing the sofa. The wall would be the screen, clean and unobstructed. I placed the USB with Grandma Louise's message next to the computer. My heart pounded, but not from fear, it was knowing that after today, nothing would be the same. At exactly 5 p.m. the doorbell rang. My mother was first through, in a soft beige dress, hair styled, heels clicking like she was on a runway. Where's Lauren? She asked, using the name she wielded to remind me she gave birth to me. I'm the one who invited everyone, I said calmly, stepping forward. Please come in. My father followed, then Uncle Ray, Aunt Linda and Hunter, who looked visibly nervous. I offered seats, then walked to the projector. I'd like to share something, I said, voice low but clear enough to hush the room. I plugged in the USB. The screen lit up, and there was Grandma Louise, silver hair neat, sharp eyes focused, voice soothing as those summer afternoons when she'd tell me stories as a child. If you're watching this, it means Lauren refused to sign anything you brought her. I heard a small shift from my mother's seat, but she said nothing. I've established a trust that cannot be changed. Everything I left belongs to Lauren, the only grandchild who never demanded, never manipulated, and never disappointed me. Hunter looked down. My mother shifted. My father stared at the screen in disbelief. This trust has 3 clear conditions. 1, it's for personal living expenses, housing, healthcare, education. 2, it may be invested in independent ventures with no family ties. 3, it can be donated to verified charities. I glanced at my mother. She was staring at me not with anger but panic. If any family member tries to coerce Lauren to give up her inheritance or sues to claim it, 50% of the funds will immediately transfer to the 4 named nonprofits. Silence. I shut off the projector. I know yesterday you planned for me to sign away everything, but that wasn't Grandma's wish. And I'm no longer the naive child you could push around. My mother shot up, voice trembling. You're blowing this out of proportion. Everything I did was for you. Really? I asked quietly. For me, or because you were afraid that if I held the inheritance, you'd no longer have access to solve your own problems with my money? My father slammed his hand on the table. Enough, Lauren. This is family. We share everything. I looked him in the eyes. I've shared enough. This time, I'm keeping what's mine. I pulled a copy of the trust conditions from the envelope and placed it on the table. Grandma saw all of this coming. And if anyone still plans to break that trust, every action has a consequence. My mother clutched her purse, eyes darting, lost. You'll regret this. One day you'll need us. I nodded slowly. Maybe, but today I need something else, respect. And I'm not trading that for any amount of money. I opened the door. This meeting is over. My apartment was quiet again, but not lonely, it felt peaceful. The USB on the table held not just a will, but my grandmother's trust in me, that I could make my own choices and was worthy of them. And if they tried to flip the board again, I had my next move ready. The next morning I sat in my small kitchen next to a cold cup of coffee. Grandma Louise's USB was in my coat pocket, but in my hand was a thick folder from Attorney Gerald Price, given after our first meeting. Your grandmother was meticulous, he'd said, handing me clearly labeled documents year by year. She kept records of every financial transaction involving my family, from credit cards opened in my name in college to disguised money transfers labeled as medical expenses. I don't know how long I sat flipping through each page, bank statements, printed transcripts of audio recordings. But by the time I folded the last paper, I knew I wasn't just defending myself, I was telling the truth. 2 days later I called my father to meet, just him, no mom, no Hunter. We met at a quiet cafe in Brooklyn where he used to take me for pancakes as a little girl. But there was no family breakfast today, just a reckoning. My father, Richard Langston, was 10 minutes late, walking in with a sheepish smile. Sorry, traffic. Thanks for meeting me. I nodded, motioned for him to sit, and placed a thick envelope on the table. I didn't invite you to reconnect. I asked you here to be clear about a few things. He frowned at the envelope. What is this? I slid it toward him. Documents, loans you took out in my name, credit cards Mom opened but drained from my student account, and records of times you both asked for money to help Hunter that ended up in Mom's personal account in Florida. He chuckled nervously. You've got it all wrong, Lauren. It was for the family. Everyone does this. I looked him dead in the eyes. For the family? Do you know that at 21 I worked 3 jobs to pay off that credit card debt while you were in Atlantic City gambling it away? His face froze. I continued, voice calm. Do you remember when Mom called crying saying Hunter had been in a car accident and needed $8,000 for surgery? I pulled out a bank statement. 2 hours later, that money went to a car dealership in Miami where she bought a used Range Rover. Where did you hear that? He stammered. I slid over another paper a recording of her conversation with the seller. Grandma kept it. She knew. She always knew. My father leaned back, wiping his face. For the first time, he wasn't the composed man I remembered. He looked like someone losing the game. What do you want? He asked, no longer pretending to be calm. I crossed my arms. Not money, not an apology. Just this: stop. From now on, you and Mom don't touch a cent of my inheritance. No more phone calls begging, no fake emergencies, no accidental account numbers from Hunter. I leaned forward, voice firm. If anyone tries to access the trust again, I'll file charges, and I have everything ready for the IRS or the Financial Crimes Unit. He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. And one more thing, I know you're looking to hire another lawyer to challenge the will, but the trust clause is clear. If there's coercion or legal dispute, 50% of the assets go to charity. I stood, gathering my documents. So, if you want to call Mom to strategize, go ahead. Every wrong move will cost you half. He stared, gauging if I meant it. I gave a slight smile. You taught me chess, remember? Sacrifice the pawn to protect the queen. Looks like you chose the wrong piece this time. I walked out of that cafe without looking back. For the first time in years, my steps felt weightless. This wasn't about money, it was about reclaiming control of my life, something they never thought I'd be brave enough to do. On Monday morning, I arrived at Attorney Gerald Price's office at 8:45 a.m. The family meeting was set for 9 o'clock, and I wanted to be first, not out of politeness, but to double-check everything was ready. The conference room was prepared, the projector tested, and hardbound documents neatly arranged. On the screen was the paused opening frame of Grandma Louise's final video, her stern face, eyes fierce behind glasses. Gerald entered, carrying another thick folder. Everything's in place. All financial evidence is printed and marked as requested. I nodded. Good. No pleasantries when they arrive. At exactly 9 a.m. the door opened. My mother, Ellen, walked in first, followed by my father, Richard, and Hunter. They dressed like it was a boardroom meeting, Mom in a slate gray blazer, Dad in his signature red power tie, Hunter silent, hands in pockets, avoiding my eyes. Gerald began. Thank you for arriving on time. We're here to watch the final video left by Mrs. Louise Olson and disclose the estate and company shares final terms. My mother scoffed lightly. I hope this one isn't as theatrical as that surprise video at her house. I didn't reply. I hit play. The screen lit up and Grandma's voice rang out, firm and clear. If you're watching this, things have gone as I expected. Ellen, Richard, I know everything you've done, from unreported withdrawals to using company funds for personal expenses. Every transaction, bank statement, and falsified report is documented. My mother's face went pale. My father glanced at Gerald, as if hoping he'd stop the video. I've transferred full ownership of Langston and Hartley, the company I co-founded with my husband, to Lauren. She's the only one who hasn't used our name for income, hasn't lied, and hasn't cloaked greed in family loyalty. Hunter looked up, stunned. My mother jumped to her feet. Absolutely not. That company is my father's legacy, and now it belongs to the only one who honors that legacy, I said, rising. I am the legal heir. And here is the ownership transfer, notarized and filed. I placed the signed agreement and registration documents from Gerald before them. This is illegal, my father yelled, slamming the table. I'm still the acting CEO. I have rights. You have rights until you're forced to resign, I interrupted. And that's underway. Here's your resignation letter. If you refuse to sign, all financial records, including misused company funds, will go to the SEC for investigation. I slid another file across records of payments to Riverfront Casino under a false name and invoices from the luxury hotel Mom used for her weekend conferences. No one spoke. Gerald added, if anyone attempts to interfere with this transfer or threaten the heir, the trust's asset protection clause will activate, transferring half the inheritance to financial abuse recovery organizations. I looked at my mother. You used to say I was too sensitive, but you were wrong. I was just too patient. My father's hand shook as he reached for the resignation letter. If I sign, will you stay quiet? I don't want to hurt the family's name, I said. But if you keep manipulating me, I won't hesitate to bring the truth to light. Richard looked at my mother. She said nothing, her face ghost white, lips pressed tight. Finally he signed. I gathered the papers and looked at them one last time. From this point, all shared family assets will be independently audited. All secondary credit cards are canceled. The company apartment is reclaimed. Discretionary funds are frozen. Hunter muttered, Lauren, this has gone too far. I turned to him. No, Hunter. This should have ended long ago. Today, it's being rewritten with the truth. The conference room door closed softly behind me, no slam, no drama. But to them, that sound echoed louder than any final word. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. 2 weeks later, I officially took over as CEO of Langston and Hartley, the company my grandmother Louise built with my great-grandfather when it was a small law office in Cambridge. Today, it's one of New England's most respected investment advisory firms. I, the granddaughter once dismissed as just the accountant, now sat in the top-floor office where my father's nameplate hung for over 20 years. I didn't change much, just replaced his portrait with one of Grandma's paintings. A forest path lit by the last light of day. I think she would have liked that. But I didn't just take over the company. I did something else, something I believe was Grandma's unspoken wish. I founded the Louise Olson Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to financial education for young people and counseling for those manipulated by their families. Most of the foundation's budget came from 20% of the company's profits, a board resolution I wrote, which passed, though not without surprise. But I knew they'd come to appreciate it once they understood the purpose. That afternoon, I received a text from an unknown number. Lauren, it's Mom. Your father just got out of the hospital. We need to talk. I took a few minutes before replying. Friday 3 p.m. my office. They arrived on time. My mother looked polished but tired. My father, noticeably older, his face gaunt after a recent hospitalization for mild heart failure. The arrogance was gone, replaced by fatigue from too many failed schemes. Lauren, my mother began, we're not here to ask for money. We just want to hear from you. Clearly. I sat across from them, 2 small envelopes on the table. I'm not trying to shut you out forever, but I can't be the family's financial fallback anymore. I slid the envelopes toward them. Inside were lists of independent financial counseling centers and a treatment program for gambling and compulsive spending. I'm willing to pay for these if you're ready for a fresh start, but I won't write another check to patch over bad decisions. My mother hesitated. Do you think we're horrible people? I shook my head gently. I think you're people who never learn to set boundaries, and worse, you never let me learn to set mine. My father spoke softly. I made mistakes not once, many times. But seeing you here strong in control, maybe that's the smartest thing your grandmother ever did. I didn't respond, not because I wasn't moved, but because I'd learned not to base my future on someone else's remorse. They left quietly, no hugs, no further asks. That evening, I returned to the foundation office, where college students were setting up for a seminar on recognizing financial abuse within families. I stood in the back observing. No one knew I was the founder, and I liked it that way. Reagan arrived late, carrying 2 bubble teas. Word is Hunter's younger sister just signed up to volunteer. I smiled. Good. At least the next generation has hope. She handed me a paper draft for the foundation's website. What do you want under the About Us section? I paused, then wrote. We believe family should never be a place where you fear your finances, and real love never comes with a price tag. Reagan nodded, eyes lighting up. Perfect. Your grandma would be proud. I looked out the window, city lights shimmering like Christmas. For the first time in years, I felt no tug of war between gratitude and guilt. I didn't owe anyone anything anymore. I was living a life fully mine. I used to think blood ties were sacred, unchangeable, that no matter how many times you were hurt, you kept forgiving because they were family. But some ties only exist to weigh you down. If you're never brave enough to let go, you'll stay trapped in an endless loop of self-sacrifice. That fall, as golden leaves blanketed the path to Langston and Hartley's headquarters, I stepped into a new chapter. No more emergency calls. No veiled texts about money. No guilt when I said no to someone who once called me the good girl. I lived in a modest apartment near Boston Common, nothing extravagant, but cozy enough that every night I came home, I no longer felt lost. On my bookshelf were new photos. Me, Reagan, and the Foundation's first team on a site visit in Vermont. Me and Hunter sharing the stage at the company's restructuring announcement. Me smiling into a mirror without pretending. One late evening after a seminar on breaking toxic family ties, Reagan sat beside me, hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea. If your mom called again, would you answer? I stayed quiet, then shook my head. Not because I'm angry, but because I understand. Every time I open that door, I give them another chance to take what took years to reclaim peace. Reagan nodded, her eyes following the soft glow of the ceiling lights. Your family didn't lose you over money. They lost you because they never learned to keep someone they thought would never leave. Her words stayed with me into the next day, when I was invited to speak at a youth conference for those hurt by their families. I walked to the podium with a few notes and a truth I no longer hid. My name is Lauren, and the first thing I want you to know is you're not selfish for choosing to protect yourself. The room went silent. I continued. I used to be my parents' bottomless wallet, the successful one. But behind closed doors were midnight calls, guilt trips if you don't help. What will happen to us? I gave more than money. I gave my trust, time, and youth, trying to hold together something called family peace. But peace built on guilt never lasts. I looked at the front row where Hunter sat quietly. He gave a small nod, silent agreement. Real family isn't who gave birth to you. It's who stays when you dare to live as your full self. That could be a college friend, a coworker who shares their lunch, or you who got back up. Not for anyone else, but for yourself. As I stepped down, many stood and applauded, not because I was a CEO, but because I'd chosen to let go to begin again. That night, I sat alone at the Foundation office, watching the streetlights fade. On my desk was Grandma Louise's final handwritten letter, never made public. Dear Lauren, if the day comes when you must choose between keeping your family and keeping yourself, remember, real family will never ask you to lose who you are. Choosing yourself isn't abandoning anyone. It's the only way you can be whole and truly give. And if you must go, walk toward peace. I folded the letter and placed it in the drawer. Peace, not something I was given, but something I learned to create. For the first time, I knew this for certain. I don't need anyone's permission to be happy. Lauren's story is a reminder that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is set boundaries, even with family. Blood doesn't equal kindness, and true love doesn't come with conditions. In a world where many are manipulated under the guise of duty, Lauren chose to live by her values, rebuilding her life on truth and self-worth. She proved happiness comes not from pleasing others, but from the courage to be honest with yourself. What do you think about Lauren's choice? Would you have done the same in her shoes?